And Altered Moments is live. Welcome to Altered Moments on today, Tuesday, April 23rd. I'm Kimberly Stevens. I'm your host, and Altered Moments is simply a time to take a pause and talk about moments where God shows up in our lives and changes us, and we are never, ever the same. I believe God is alive and well and still changes hearts and lives every single day. And if you're here today and you need an altered moment, it's just a simple conversation with God. Ask Him for eyes to see and ears to hear where He's working in your life. And that is a conversation He promises to answer. We have a very special guest today. His name is Wally Marshall. I'm going to bring him to the stage. Wally, welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Wally is joining us. Did you say you're in Dallas? Wally, are you in Dallas? Are you joining us from Dallas today?
Watermark Church.
Awesome. Wally originally is from California, but he lives in the Chicago area and has lived there for quite a few years, actually. Wally and I have been friends longer than I care to say I've been alive. And we both started ministry together with Campus Crusade for Christ at San Diego State University.
Yeah.
And his wife, Keeleen, was my mentor and leader. And we all heard from Keeleen a couple of weeks ago. So now this is her other half.
Yay.
And Wally is a congregational care pastor at a large church in the Chicagoland area. And we were just talking a little bit about his role as a care pastor. But I can tell you, as Wally's friend, Wally's longtime friend, that Wally lives this. He is truly a caring person who gives of himself and his heart. And he just lives his role, which is absolutely amazing. When we say our calling calls us, I think that's what has happened with you, Wally.
Yeah, definitely fitting into it for sure.
It's pretty awesome. How long have you been doing this?
Well, I've been at this church that I'm at right now for 3 years, but I've been in ministry for 39 years. So at some point, whether it was crew, whether it was with you and your husband there, and now with where I'm at now. So 39 years. Feels
Pretty
good.
amazing.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your family.
Married to a wonderful leader, a female leader, my wife, Wally Marshall, who you probably heard from already. But she is not only gifted in that, but she's just a wonderful friend and partner to me. She's not just a completer of my inadequacies, but she definitely allows me to be myself, and I so appreciate that because I'm a slow mover. I'm a prodder. I don't jump. I'm not a quick. I'm not what progressive person that goes fast. Where she is a driven person.
She is go.
She is very much so. But I also have two young boys, a 33-year-old and a 31-year-old, and they're both married and live in the Chicago area. And I have one granddaughter who's 18 months now, who's the life of our family. She is the pillar right now. She gets all the attention, even more so than the dogs. And so she's wonderful. Her name's Audrey Blake. So yeah, fun thing. I grew up in California, like Kim said, and went to Arizona State and then Michigan, and I've been around a few schools in my life for my education. But my real education has come from experiencing just people in ministry, and just so much of that is just experiential. So, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I know as we transition a little bit into your altered moment, you're going to be talking about decision making.
Yeah.
And I think it's key that you mentioned at the beginning that you are a methodical person
Hmm.
and you do things step by step, one step at a time. And so when we start talking about decision making and this particular decision that you had to make, um, I think it's important for all of us to know who are joining us that um, decisions are more difficult for people who do things methodically. Would you agree?
Yes, I mean there are the pros and cons of everything, every decision we make, obviously, and some people do that on paper. Some people do that in their heads. Some people do that just by talking about it with other people, and then that gets more ideas for them. But I'm kind of a processor in the sense I put it on paper and I pray about it, and I really take. I don't really make quick decisions, but I don't. But I can. I can be spontaneous in some things, but for the most part, I take my time in making decisions. And so my wife even laughs at me because I eat my food one thing at a time, and she just she makes fun of that because I keep everything kind of compartmentalized, and I know that men in some ways generally do that, but where women they can just cross over and do lots of synapses stuff in their brains. But
We
anyways,
mix our peas and carrots.
yeah. So I do, and I don't think there's a right or wrong in that, whether how you make those decisions. But I do for myself. I do feel like I have had a good experience and good success at the way I do it for me. So
That's pretty awesome.
yeah.
So, if you are joining us today live, first of all, welcome. We're really excited that you're here. And if you're joining us on the replay at a later day, welcome to you as well. If you are a person who has trouble making decisions or would just appreciate a little bit of guidance about decision making,
Hmm.
Wally's Altered Moment will inspire you,
Yeah.
hopefully, to take that next step. So, Wally, what was going on in your life at the time of your altered moment, this decision that you ended up making?
Yeah. So I was in medical school at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and I was in the Interflex program, which is an accelerated program for that. And I was a sponge of information, trying to figure out where God wanted me to be, and that was really not. God was kind of pushed off to the side a little bit, but I did definitely have a path, and that was medicine. And so when I got a winter break in 1986, I went to a
No, what
conference.
year in medical school were you at this
I was
point?
that. It was my first year. So first year, sorry. Yeah, and the first year. So there's 3 years in the Interflex program. So I was in the first year. I went to a conference for athletes in action because I played tennis at Arizona State, and so that was a great thing for me. But I went to this athletes in action conference in Cincinnati, and Anthony Munoz was the one of the speakers. He was a keynote speaker. He's a offensive lineman for the Cincinnati Bengals at the time.
Very
He was
cool.
an active player and bigger than life to all us smaller people. And he was just his words were magical to me because he was talking basically about living your life for a title or a testimony. And really, I was at a point where in my life where I was living for a title. I did not even think about my testimony, what that looked like, even because I was a new believer, a new Christian, and I really just wanted to be a good person and good doctor, and didn't really fully understand what that even meant. But for the majority of that conference, all I could think about was this title or testimony. So we got in our car to leave, and there was about 8 people in the car, and one of the staff gals, she was asking everybody what was the highlight of your conference or retreat, everybody was talking and laughing, and I was sitting in the back, kind of befuddled because I did not know how I felt about that conference or that retreat. And it was actually me struggling with the fact that I was living for a title, and yet I believed God wanted me to live for my testimony, for what I could uh, glorify Him by, and not by myself. And so I just really wrestled with that the whole, even when she was asking the question. And so when it came to my point where they actually knew I was being quiet, and I'm not always quiet, they asked me, well, what's going on? And I said, well, I'm back at the conference thinking, I'm living for a title, guys. I care about being a doctor too much, or I care about the prestige of it. I care about pleasing my parents and wanting to please the doctors that are in my family, and because I like science, I should just automatically do this. And I was wrestling with that decision. So I went through that car ride for, from Cincinnati back to Ann Arbor, and it was a struggle for me. And so when we got back to campus, I started asking my professors about their relationship with their families. And I had 11
Mm.
advisors at that point, and they all but one were divorced and did not have a relationship with their kids at all, or it was minimal. And I knew that if I was ever going to be a dad or a father or married, I would want to have that. And I wanted to have a different relationship with my kids than my dad had with me. And so that kind of formed a little bit of angst in me in school. And so I started thinking about, for the first time, what did God want me to do with my life, instead of what did other people want for me to do with my life. And also, what was natural, which was science was natural, and I could solve lots of problems. And I like people, so that was, it seemed like a perfect fit. But it was a struggle because of this area of, like, I don't know too many of my advisors, at least. And I do know physicians have good relationships with their kids and do well. I know Kim works with lots of physicians, and that's
Yeah.
a great profession. But for me, it was a struggle. So I started talking to my advisors about leaving and going into seminary, and of course
Wow.
they all said no, 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 don't do it. So, and I was also at that time had just come off of um, seeing my girlfriend, who is now my fiance, who's not my wife currently. And
Oh.
yes, who's not Kayleen. And when I quit medical school, I left to go to a marriage conference. And this marriage conference really, again, deciding whether marriage or not marriage, right? This is like what does God want for your marriage? And I was trying to process the first talk, and had to write a love letter to each other. And I zipped through the 2 paragraphs, and she wasn't writing anything.
Oh.
And she told me that she wanted to marry a doctor, and I'm not going to be a doctor. So she's left. She left right in front of me, and I thought there was a candid camera, something around
While
hidden
you were at
around.
the marriage
While we're at
conference.
the marriage conference, Family Life Marriage Conference in Scottsdale, Arizona, and it was I thought it was a joke. I thought she was, didn't mean it to be that vain, right? That's pretty vain. And so I just sat there, and then this guy came walking by. I saw my books on my table right there by my lounging chair, and he said, "How's it going?" I said, "It's terrible. My fiance just left." And he said, "Well, can I sit down?" And I thought that was weird, but he sat down, and he was one of the speakers for that night
Oh, wow.
at the conference. He's a pastor in Arkansas, and it was like really, really odd. But he sat down and he started saying, this is the best thing that could ever happen to you, because you could have gotten married, and she wasn't really in love with you. She was in love with your title. And that popped up again, right?
Wow.
And so I'm like, oh my gosh, how could God be more clear to me than to live now I need to live my life for a testimony. What is God moving in my life? What is he doing through me to help other people? And that was my calling. That was what I started doing with Campus Crusade and Athletes in Action and the churches that I've worked in. And I have been blessed by that decision that one time, even though they were super hard and it took months to process and grieve those losses, but it was so, it was so so forecasted for me to be what I am today because of those things. Yeah.
So you picked the testimony.
Yeah, I picked the testimony. Yep, I am living my testimony out, and I'm living my legacy is to my boys for sure, my grandkids, and whoever comes around me. But it's to the people that I love. Charles Spurgeon wrote this passage or wrote this thing. He said, write your name on hearts, not on marble. And he used that at funerals, and I use that at funerals too, because it's so true. I want to write my name on their hearts, not on marble. And so I find the great privilege of doing weddings and funerals. Get to do a lot of those. We have a young church and an old church too. So I get to do those two things well. Yeah.
That's amazing. So if you go back to that car ride from Cincinnati to Michigan,
Yeah.
and you were wrestling with the choice,
Mm-hmm.
testimony or title, what went through your head? Were you worried about, how do I tell my parents if I choose the testimony?
That's one of the things that for sure went through my head, because my mom and dad were, expecting me, if I couldn't be a professional tennis player because I couldn't do that anymore, what would I do? And the prestige of being a doctor was, for them, a life, I guess, life goal for them. But that didn't happen. And so they didn't talk to me for a little while. They were pretty
Really?
upset with me. Yeah, they were literally upset with me for at least a month and a half or so. So my sisters were still living at home, and they were the only ones that would talk to me and kind of convey how mom and dad are feeling. And it was a while before they really accepted the idea. And my mom and dad always said this to us, my sisters and I: we just want you to be happy, and whatever you choose to do in life, we just want you to be happy. And so conveying what I was moving into with going to seminary and stuff, they didn't understand that because they were far from God. So they thought I was wasting my life and my brain. And so my testimony to them at that time was bogus. They thought it was fake.
Yeah.
Until they made changes in their lives too, to accept Christ and to walk with him for the brief times that they had before they died. But it was very, very hard time for me, because I didn't have a fiance, and I didn't have my parents to talk to. I didn't have a lot of people to talk to. God.
And you
Yeah. I had to rely on God. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a kind of an odd question.
Okay.
But as I was listening to you talk about this, picking a title or a testimony,
Mm-hmm.
in choosing a testimony, do you think, I know for you, the right decision was to go into full-time ministry.
Yeah.
That was your choice. But for others who are making choices, who might be listening, can you talk a little bit about the possibility of having a testimony
Yeah. Even
being in full-time ministry?
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Wherever you are, wherever you find yourself, the idea of when Kim and I were with Crew, the idea was win, build, and send. And that send part was always about sending them to wherever. So I worked with college athletes and pro athletes, and we were, sending them off to hopefully the NFL or something professional. But most of them were not going into that. So wherever they go, wherever job they find themselves, God is with them, and they need to invite God into those elements of their work marketplace or wherever it is. And so I think I mean, it's a pretty amazing thing to think that God can be on the stock exchange, God can be in the doctor's office, He can be anywhere, but we have to invite Him into those things, and we have to allow Him to be not just a part of our day on Sunday, but every day, every moment. And that's the testimony right there, is that God is active in my life, no matter where I am, whether I'm in church or whether I'm on a golf course, pickleball courts, whatever I am. God is there. He's with me. And so my testimony on the pickleball court is that because I played tennis and stuff, and I'm pretty good at pickleball. I still need to have the proper perspective of myself, so that I'm not, my testimony to my opponents are not, this guy's going to kill me here, that type of thing. So yeah, so that's that. But Kim, going back to the idea that in the marketplace you can so have a testimony, and so much, even though you have a title of whatever you are, that title, the testimony goes beyond that. It just does. And even though I have a title of a pastor, which gives me respect from some people and disrespect from other people, I have to still live a life that's pleasing to God. I still do. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
So we have a couple of comments. Cy Todd is joining us from France. She said "Go Blue," by the way.
Oh,
And Cy, Michigan is it has to be my number 3 Big Ten school now, behind Iowa and
but
Northwestern, where my son went to school.
yeah.
However, before my son chose Northwestern, Michigan was my number 2 Big Ten team.
Okay, yay.
And then Nick Lowry, who was a kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs and several other teams, is tuning in, and he said to say hello.
Okay.
And I'm sure the athlete testimony and talk is resonating with him.
Yeah.
As well. Hi, Nick. Thank you for being here. So when you started talking about full-time ministry versus being in ministry where you are, I saw your face light up.
Yeah.
And it just made my heart warm, because I have seen you serve people, and I see that really is your calling. You were called at that conference way back when.
Yeah.
Into
Anthony Munoz, he knows it too. I've talked to him before and told him how influential he was in my life, and he's got a really neat foundation in the Cincinnati area, and his family's involved in it and stuff. And I've affirmed him many times. Yeah,
that's pretty amazing. Talk about maybe one of your favorite stories that in caring for somebody where your heart was just filled because this truly is your calling that you've stepped into.
Yeah. Well, I think probably I'll do a recent thing, because I do. I lead a group of. It's called Grief Share. Grief Shares nationally. It's a national thing that churches do, and people just lead them too, in non-churches sometimes. But it's just helping people that are grieving through a death of a family member, and so I have so many connections to people through my years where they have passed away, and I've just really gotten to spend time with the family, trying to figure out how do we honor this person the best way. And I think every time, and I'm talking hundreds of times, every time it's so beautiful, because these families who are grieving and can't even understand what's going on, especially if it's a tragedy, not an expected death. It's so amazing to see them just see how we can honor that family member and bring a little bit of closure to their hurts. now everybody grieves differently, and everybody, there's no time limit to it. Of course, I know that, but for the most part, that at first initial time when I get to grieve, be with a family, it's just it's life giving to me. And so I'm just going to pick this more recent one that I have with a lady whose husband died about a year and a half ago, and we spent maybe some time with him while he was in hospice, and he acknowledged me, knew who I was, but he was still in a lot of, probably under some medication. So let's just say that. And his wife was there, and so for the year and a half that he's been gone, she has been actively not isolating herself so she could be around people. And
Wow.
that has helped her so much to help me now to lead other people in grief share, and to in a short amount of time, even though she's still grieving the loss and the loneliness of him not being there, and yet and also having some other people in her life that are going through hospice and on their final days too. So her now being able to kind of pass the things on that she's learned in the year and a half to other people and family members and also friends is just so beautiful to me, because I still get to do that with her because she's still a part of my ministry, and yet she's doing it on her own too, and having opportunities to do that, because there are people hurting around us all the time. I mean, no one gets to escape death.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as you were sharing that, it brought me to a place of tears.
Hmm.
Um, because I am no stranger to grief.
Yep.
And,
Yep.
I lost my baby son
Mm-hmm.
when I was very young
Yep.
and ill equipped to cope and deal with the pain. And my person, who wasn't named Wally, but my Wally in my life at that time was a woman named Lynn.
Hmm.
And Lynn, I cannot wait to have this conversation with you directly.
Hmm.
And again, thank you for being there and walking through that pain with me
Yeah.
on a not just a daily basis, sometimes an hourly basis. She said to me that she was Jesus with skin on
Yeah.
in my life, and she truly was my angel. And she would ask me, I've shared very openly on many episodes that I was very angry with God when Braden died.
Yeah.
And it was very hard for me to want to talk to him. And having someone like you, like Lynn, in my life was invaluable. I have no idea where I would be today
Yeah.
without what she did for me. In much the same way, I know that the people you have walked with
Hmm.
in their pain and their grief can say the same thing in gratitude to you.
That's why I love your book so much, is because of that story, because it gives people hope. It gives people a sense of, I can, if this person can get through this pain and do it with help and maybe different things, uh, I can get through this too. So that's what I mean, that's what I loved about your book. So
Thank you. And that is really the whole purpose of an altered moment,
yeah, that's
right?
totally
That
true.
moment where alter ER, we are changed,
Hmm.
and we are changed by the alter AR, altar of God. It's a
Yeah.
moment when God changes us and we are never the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he uses people, he uses scripture, he uses circumstances, he uses anything that will get our attention.
Yeah.
Sai, thank you for being here. Sai said, great testimony, Wally,
Mm,
and she's really excited um, for us both.
thank
We're
you.
working on having Sai join us one of these days from France very soon.
Oh, neat.
Very cool. Sai is on staff with Crew.
All right. Way to go, Cy. she's going to be busy this summer with the
Very,
Olympics. Yeah,
very.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, happen in
absolutely.
place. Oh,
So, Wally, one question I always like to ask my
okay,
guests
yeah.
is, if you now, given all of these stories, and truly your face says it all. I know you've stepped into your calling with brilliance, and I see that it gives you joy. When you were making that decision so many years ago,
Yeah.
what would you say to yourself now back then?
I would say now to my 25-year-old person, don't sweat the process. Don't think that you have to fit into other people's process. Learn about yourself. Be self-aware. Don't don't feel like you have to fit into a box and be who you're not, because you want to be authentic. You want to be real. You want people to understand that your process is not their process, just like your grieving is not their grieving. But I just, and I would also say to my younger self, when I was back in early days of ministry, pray and be more connected to God than just doing. I'm at a conference right now that just talked about that, and it's just so fresh in my mind that I wish I would have heard this talk that I heard already a couple hours ago, when I was 25, because praying and being in the presence of God is everything, and I can, and then that will spring up all the other things that, yeah, I will be busy. I need to get things done. I need to pay my bills. I need to be responsible, but from a heart that's full because of my prayer and my listening to God, that's where I believe I'm going to do that from now on. I mean, it's just like I have to keep walking through this. And I was talking with one of my staff guys who were walking out of the building, and he was walking to a breakout, and I'm walking to this, and we were talking about, okay, what are we going to do differently? Because we have a prayer ministry. I lead the prayer ministry. It's
I
okay.
mean,
It's okay. It's okay, but it's not what we talked about what this guy talked about today. So I'm wanting to transform that a little bit too. So just being in God's presence is everything. So whether you're in the grocery store being a checker, or whether you're visiting doctors and helping them find the right drugs, whatever it might be. Yeah.
amen and amen. And all of that leads to being changed by God
Yeah.
and never being the same, which
Yeah.
is a perfect segue
Yeah.
into altered moments.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
and I want to say it again. We talked about it at the beginning, but for anybody who is needing an altered moment, it is a simple conversation with God,
Mm.
just asking for eyes to see and ears to hear where He is working in their lives.
Well,
And when we start that conversation with God and open ourselves up to be willing to see and hear, it's a conversation God promises to show up for.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the really cool thing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Mm.
Well, any final comments before we
Thank you,
close?
Kim, for this opportunity just to be with you. I just love, I mean, when you came to visit us, I don't know, a long while, maybe 2 years ago, I guess it was
Yeah.
last time. That was so much fun, and you're such a beautiful woman, and just a wonderful person in general, and a great swimmer, of course. I know that, but um, just yeah, just I love how God has used this process for you, and even how the book has just transformed so many people's lives, that I mean, please just listen to these podcasts, because they're so hopeful, and it's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
All
you
right.
for being here and sharing your altered moment.
Yeah.
And thank you to everyone who joined us.
Yeah.
And anybody who does need an altered moment, if you're not a reader, Well, you can, first of all, you can find my book on Amazon. Just put my name in, Kimberly Stevens. It will come up, Altered, Finding Hope Through Grit and Gratitude to Never Give Up. But if you're not a reader, I have an altered playlist on my website, KimberlyJStevens.com. It's 4.5 hours of music that is designed to fill your heart with hope
Huh.
and help you open your eyes and ears to see and hear God at work in your life. And when He is at work in your life, we are changed.
Nice. Nice.
Wally, thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Our next show is Friday. I don't actually have a slide for it today. Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. My very good friend Laura Wellman is going to be our guest. She and I call each other the Hot Mamas. We'll explain that on Friday.
Okay.
I hope to see everybody on Friday. And Wally, thank you
You're
again for
welcome.
being
Thank you.
here.
Yep.
And make sure you give your beautiful wife a big hug for me.
I will. I'm sure
I
she's
love
going to
you
watch
guys.
this. Make sure it's like I was okay.
I love you guys.
Thank
And
you.
thank you. Enjoy
Yeah.
your conference.
All right. I will.